my friend, and welcome back. My name is Hannah, and today I have some makeup history or a review of an old product. I don't know what to call this video. I don't know what exactly this video is. Before I get into it, I do just want to let you know, if you're curious about anything that I'm wearing on my face, if you want to find my social medias, if you're curious about, I don't know, anything that I talk about in this video and I could potentially get you a link to something, the links are always down in the description box down below. So if you like this video and you would like to see more, I always post between 4 to 5 times a week. And I have a lot of content for you as I've been making videos for quite some time, so you can binge watch me very easily. But let's talk about the item that I want to talk about today. So I went to my local Marshalls because I had to pick up some things from Target, and I don't know, my little shopping center is cool because it's like Target, Marshalls, Joann's, Ulta, and it's like every store that I could ever want as like a cosplayer, a content creator, a young lady in the current age. They're all right next to each other, so I just park my car and then do my laps. It's fine. It's nice. And I don't know, I had a really terrible Friday at work and just kind of a follow-up of like a very terrible week. So I decided to go into Marshalls. I don't know if you guys are following Trend Mood, but she had posted that a unreleased Marc Jacobs Cafe eyeshadow palette was found in a TJ Maxx. If you didn't know, TJ Maxx and Marshalls are the same store, so a lot of the same things that you find in one store, you'll probably find in the other, just to let you know. And I mean, I saw that palette in my Marshalls back in the summer, and I was really hesitant to pick up this palette only because the packaging is so cute. It's that like latte marble kind of design that the face palette has. And the inside is just like a brown neutral palette, which is absolutely wonderful. But then I think about like what I have in my collection, and it's like, do I already have something like that? The answer is yes. Yes, I do. So I didn't really need that palette. I can still find it online. People are actually like, here's the thing, you could have bought it at the TJ Maxx or Marshalls for like 14 bucks, and now people are selling it for like $30, $40, $50 online. It's fine. I don't know if I'm going to be a part of that makeup history trend. I'm still on the fence. I don't know if I really need the specific Marc Jacobs palette. But what I thought was really cool, it wasn't there when I went. I just, I didn't know if like maybe it only made it to Trend Mood because so many people were like noticing it. Because I mean, they never sold it online or on their store, so they have a lot of stock of it. They have to push it somewhere. And I don't know, so I thought, oh, well, maybe they just like a larger batch had come out and I should just go pick it up. I have a problem with shopping at TJ Maxx and Marshalls because I can very easily spend a lot of money in those kind of stores. I always like buying makeup from them. I know that there's the pros and cons of, it can be opened. Sometimes there's just the box and the item isn't inside. Sometimes people swatch an item and put it back on the shelf. I think you just gotta take your best judgment. I mean, obviously if a box looks tampered with, don't pick it up. My Marshalls will kind of, what are they called? The spider ribbons or whatever. So that keeps it closed, but I mean, if you want to just rip open a package, people find a way. I don't know. I know at the Ross in that same shopping center, they put makeup in like the plastic containers, so you couldn't even swatch it if you wanted to. I've seen that in a few TJ Maxx and Marshalls, but like not at the one currently in my closest shopping center. Anyway, I don't have a problem. I've actually bought a lot of makeup over there. That's how I kind of started making content for the internet, was because I was going there quite often and picking up makeup. And in the past year, they opened up an online store so you can purchase things online. If you're a big fan of Bobbi Brown, actually, there's a lot of Bobbi Brown right now. Go visit their websites. I'll have them linked down below. So, I don't know, to make a long story short, I went in there, they didn't have the Marc Jacobs item, and I saw that they had, what's the ABH boat palette with like the stripes? It's not the Norvina palette because I know that's the purple one that I have, but I saw that there. I saw the Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palettes. I saw I saw a few palettes actually that I'm like, oh, they had a few different BH cosmetics palettes. Actually, right now is the perfect time to go because I saw a lot of BH items actually. They had some of the travel palettes and like the newer ones, not the older ones, but the newer ones. And they had the music genres that were there. But the palette that I want to talk about, I saw it tucked away at the very, like, not at the very back, but it was just, because they have the items right stacked like this in like a plastic display container, and the palette was just on like laid flat. And I couldn't believe my eyes because I've almost bought this palette used from like Mercari and stuff like a number of times. But then I'm like, no, I don't actually need it. It's okay, like grungy palettes will come back. But I found the Subculture palette from ABH, and look, this is gonna show how old I am. This palette was like kind of the last bit of like drama I have like fought like very vivid memories of, and like I remember watching like 20-30 videos on this palette and just like the whole community getting crazy about it. I know mine looks beat up, but this was one of those palettes that had one of those spider tags on it. It is what it is. It is what it is. I haven't opened it yet. We can open it together. But just to give you a little bit of history, I think this palette came out in 2016, 2017. I am drawing a blank, but it's been quite some time. I believe it's a discontinued palette, like, so you couldn't find it anywhere. That's why I was so shocked to see it in a Marshall's, because who had it? Because these items get shipped from like Ulta's and Sephora's and other warehouses and things like that, whatever company sells these stores, or excuse me, whatever company sells these items, they can sell off like dead stock to like a Ross, a TJ Maxx, a Marshalls, those kind of stores. That's how you're able to get all these like cool brand names in there. That's why you'll see like Gucci at like Marshalls and TJ Maxx, because Gucci's like, well, we have all this stock and we just send it out. Well, it's not the Gucci store specifically, but like I think like a Neiman Marcus and stuff like that, they will send out dead stock. And usually it's dead stock from, because like a Neiman Marcus will have like their discounted stores too. I think it's called like off the rack. So it's dead stock from those like off the rack stores, those kind of things. I know a lot about business and history. Wow, I'm trying to, I want to eventually get into using the palette. But I think it's worth talking about the history because maybe a lot of you like also don't understand like the history of this palette. So the complaints with this palette was that it was super not super pigmented. It was super, what's the word that they, kickback. That was like a huge thing people cared about in early like internet makeup, was when, you know, you put your brush in a product and you dip it in and then there's some kickback. And I don't know, it always made me laugh because if it's it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen regardless, especially if it's like a pressed pigment or anything like that. Like it's just, that's what comes with, you know, the territory. So I don't know. I don't, like, when I watch reviews now, I don't think that is something that people worry about. Like, I know sometimes in Nikki Tutorials videos, she'll mention it, but then she always says, like, that doesn't mean anything about the formula, really. And I don't know if it was this palette that really put that on there. The second thing was that using this palette, people said that it wasn't blendable, that it was super patchy, that it flaked everywhere on the face, and they absolutely hated it. And I don't know, I want to see if this is maybe a palette ahead of its time, because when I was kind of rewatching some of those old videos, they were all doing the like 2016 like internet kind of, you know, big smoky eye. And like, I get it, a good palette, you'll be able to use it in multiple ways for whatever aesthetic. It shouldn't just be catered to a specific, I don't know, demographic. At least to me anyway, right? Like you can use Play-Dohs and do like a whole big sci-fi thing, or you can do like the smoky eye, you know, that's what I mean by a good product. But some products or some brands specifically lean into a demographic, which is also okay. Like, I don't know, you be the judge of that. But I don't know. So I just remember watching some of these videos and thinking like, there's like no way. Like, would people still be that upset about this palette now? Like, considering, and especially how like graphic liners and that kind of like whole look is really trending on like TikTok and Instagram right now. So I don't know. I want to play with this palette. I want to get into it. I want to see what's going on. So they did also re-release this palette after all of the controversy first happened with the first drop. And I think the first drop too, people complained about staining on the lids because of pigments. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but if you look at any like ColourPop palette or any palette in general, they'll have shades on the packaging and they'll have an asterisk. Usually the asterisk means that it's not necessarily safe for eye area use because it is like a particular like pressed pigment. Does that mean like I don't know. I think if you have sensitive eyes, maybe don't use items like that on your eyes. I have very normal skin. My eyes aren't crazy sensitive. So for me, that doesn't really mean anything, but I understand that having ingredients and products are very important because I don't know, maybe you are someone that is very sensitive to that kind of stuff. And I would hate for you to put a shadow on your eye because I said like this is absolutely beautiful and then it makes your eye like swollen shut like this, you know, like I don't wish that upon anybody. That's uncomfortable. And I don't know, this palette has so much controversy and I want to know if the controversy is a product of its time. So I bought this palette for $14. I think it had originally retailed for like $49. This was like basically a $50 palette. And I'm shook because I'm so excited. So also with this palette, people would do unboxings and the palette would be disgusting and dirty, and I'm hoping that like this beat up, like I said, it was just, you know, like when you go to like Target or I don't know, do people still go to Best Buy? But you go and buy electronics and they have like this, I think they're called spider ribbons, but it's like the big black plastic piece and then the black wires that go around, and you can tell because that's where all the like scratching and things is from. And I'm pretty excited. I don't know what version of the palette this is. I believe the re-releases have like a little tag in there that like talk about like reporting things, I believe, because I don't think that the original palettes had that. So we'll see. I just spent $14 on someone's like returned item from like 4 years ago. I'm gonna laugh a little bit, but we'll see. Okay, so I think this is a re-release because I have the white tag here. Let's see. It says caution and warning, discontinue use if signs of irritation or rash appear. And they have it in many languages. This has to be a re-release. And then my palette doesn't look beat up. It's the same like crushed velvet. I don't know, it looks no different from like my Norvina or so I have the Norvina palette, and I mean mine's just kind of dirty from normal use. It is a crushed velvet, so any kind of dander in the area is gonna pick up to it. But I mean it looks almost exactly the same. It doesn't look any, like it looks like the newer version. I don't know, I don't think it doesn't look particularly dirty. Let's open the inside. If the brush is still in there, I'm gonna be excited. I don't know, I'm nervous. So far, so good. This has the plastic. The mirror has a sticker. My brush is wrapped, and look, like that's a nice looking palette. That looks pretty normal. I don't know, I just... Also, another thing is that the re-release is supposed to be better, but because of all the controversy that the palette had, that people didn't buy the re-release, and I think it got discontinued like a year or two later. I don't know, but I swear that I was seeing the Subculture palette, unless like it made a brief comeback for a while, but I swear I saw it at Ulta for a long period of time. But this is really cool. So what also made this palette really awesome was that when this came out, it was during the time, again, this had to have been like 2016, 2017, because warm toned palettes were the craze. Everybody like would release like 20 palettes in a year, and they would all be warm toned, like reds, browns, bronze, you know, that kind of thing. And this was not just colorful, but it was more cool toned. This is more grungy. And like, I know that I talk about like my Gemini palette and my sci-fi green palette. There's a few other swampy, like the Ace Beauté Tropics palette. Things like that didn't exist back then, like at all. And so like, I think that's why people like me who really love those kind of colors and those kind of palettes are even more excited, because we lived through a time where like colors like that didn't exist. I like deeper, grungier kind of tones because I don't know, when I do my makeup, I want to do something different and colorful. I don't just want like a nice like pop of pink, like a soft pink on the lid, you know, like, and if you like that, that's what you like, that's okay. That's nothing against that kind of look. That's just not what I want to do all the time. Maybe sometimes, but not all the time. And this was really fun. This was really, really fun. And I can't remember if the Norvina palette came out before or after this, but I know even that palette, for having the pinks and purples that it did, like those lighter tones, people went crazy because, again, big popular brands, they weren't releasing anything like, everything was like neutrals, warm toned neutrals all the time. And like, it's so crazy to me. Okay, so I don't know what kind of look I want to do. I'm excited. Okay, so let's zoom in so we can do a look together, and then we can see if this palette really is like as atrocious as everyone in 2016 said. Okay, let me go in with the shade Mercury. I mean, I'm just lightly tapping into my palette like I normally do, and like there's a little bit of fallout, but like not. Tati made a video where she said that she was lightly tapping into it, and then she had all this powder all over her desk. And I mean, it's not hard to fake lightly prep, but you're really like pushing it in. And I mean, like, that's quite a bit of product on my brush. Like, it's going light-handed. Again, she might not have had the re-release, but I remember her video was also very dramatic. And so I'm just gonna take this Mercury shade and I'm just gonna carve out my eye socket. If you're new to my channel, I like to carve out my socket so I can tell where I'm gonna put my shadows, because I have a little bit of like a hooded eye. So this crease, or you know, the shadow in my crease, helps me mark where I need to put my shades. And I am someone that I like to go in with the darkest shades first, and then I'll blend everything out with the lighter one. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna go in with the shade Untamed. Again, I'm pushing in like normal, and the fallout is, it's this green one right here. It's normal. I don't understand. I'm a little confused. And I like to take, this is the Sigma E70, but you can take any like bigger, fluffier angled brush. But this is what I like to do to kind of get that inner corner, or that darker outer corner, excuse me, because I can't really take a brush like this and get the same shape. So if you're like me, just go in with this brush, and I'm just gonna build it in and take it as far as I can go. I mean, I'm not noticing anything different than like other ABH shadows that I have. or any other green shadows that I have, really. And I mean, I don't know, this palette again was made 4 years ago. And people will say, like, when you buy makeup from Marshalls and TJ Maxx, like, they're old and you have to be careful and blah, blah, blah. I'm a firm believer that if the product is open, that's like when the shelf date starts. But I mean, if it's been sealed and packaged that whole time, I think it should be okay. And what else? I mean, formulas have really changed and improved in time. ABH was as popular as it is because they had really, like, their formula was really, really good and people really loved it. So I don't know, it's not performing any differently from like an eyeshadow palette that I currently have, I guess I should say. I don't find it dry. This is nothing like a Lime Crime palette. It may be looking a bit muddy right here because that Mercury shade is more of like a more muted kind of purple gray. And this is more of like a blue green. So that could just be that could just be a color choice or a color choice error on my end. But I don't know, I'm not really, I mean, I don't think it's bad. I mean, there's like a little bit of patchiness there, but I also cover that up with other shadows. What else? I could try to deepen it, but actually, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this shade New Wave. Yes, yes. And again, it's not any crazy buildup. It's like normal. And I'm just gonna see if I can't take this on the outer edge. This is definitely like a grungy toned palette. With shades like this, I usually like to go with more of like a halo eye kind of thing. What I'm gonna do is take this shade Fuzz, and I'm gonna see if I can't build this outer corner out a little bit more to my liking. I think I can deepen a green with a brown. I don't know, that makes sense in my head. Let's see if it works. I mean, if not, you just put shimmer, fix everything. I don't know, can I actually deepen up with blue? Would it have been smarter to deepen up with the blue? Maybe. I mean, I've been putting a lot of shadows together and I'm not seeing any like weird, I'm noticing muddiness, but it's probably like that's more just for me being heavy-handed. That's more my skill set versus the palette. I'm just taking a naked blend, like fluffy brush to kind of soften out that line. I don't know, moment of truth. I want to go in with this shade Electric. Is this like a first attempt at like a duochrome? Because I think it's like a gold green kind of shift. Let's spray my brush. Oh, what a pretty shade. I mean, it kind of just reminds me of a Super Shock shadow, if I'm being honest, and I'm sure ColourPop has a shadow in the same kind of tone. But no one was doing that back then. Everything was... I also think, too, the thing that annoys me with a lot of the videos that I watch, people weren't spraying their shadows. And, like, not that you have to. I just personally think they perform better and go where they need to go, especially with a brand like ABH. And like, look, the more I work it in, the more just wet it looks. I'm not mad at that. I think that's really pretty. Okay, let me take this green and kind of kiss it together with that shimmer. What do I want to take under my eye? I don't know. What shade do I want to take? Do I want to go back in with that green? That's what I'll do. I'll take Untamed again. And I'm just gonna line my lower lid. That's a really pretty metallic. That's really, really pretty. Let's take the shade Cube and let's just highlight our inner corner, because why not? This is like a pink air. Okay, this is giving me Play-Dohs. It looks white in the pan, but the more you work it in, it's like a pink. Very similar color shift to Celestial in the Club Nebula palette, which I also compared to Gifted Prophecy Highlight, or excuse me, are they? No, because one's Prophecy, the other one's Gifted. Play-Dohs is duochrome highlighters. The new one, Gifted, also looks very similar to this. I'll do my liner on video too. I'm going to take my Juvia's Place, like, what is the shade? Royal. It's a blue eyeliner. You could go in with like a dark green, if you will, but this blue I think is really fun. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna do my other eye off camera. My eyelashes will be something, either mascara or with lashes on, and I will give you some of my final thoughts, because I'll come back. I will literally come back. So let's talk about these palettes, because as I was off camera, I was looking at my other ABH palettes and I have some thoughts and opinions. Let me organize myself. Okay, so where do I start? Let's talk about the palette itself before I get into the history of the palette, I think, or my thoughts on the history of the palette. I don't think it's a bad eyeshadow palette at all. I don't think it's as beginner friendly as like going into like a ColourPop palette or like a BH Cosmetics palette, or even like Natasha Denona can be fairly user friendly, you know. It's not too hard. I don't think it's incredibly difficult. I don't think you have to do a whole lot of work to get the shadows to look the way that you want them to, or play in the way that you want them to. Just something I noticed is that this deep green is, in comparison to some of the other greens that I have in my collection, not as great. I'm not like, oh wow, this is like the best deep forest green I've ever used, but it's not the worst. I think I'm just a little, and again, this could be me not understanding color theory, but I just wish that there was a complementary shade that I could use to deepen up the outer corner, because what I like to do when I have fickle shades like this is take like reds and purples. Reds and purples can be hard shades to like get down like to a really nice formula. And they work really well together. So even if you have a finicky kind of red and you have like a finicky kind of purple, you can still use them together to keep the intentions of the kind of look you were going for and still get that deeper outer corner without having to do too much to like really like build up a shade or deepen out a corner. I also use the same method with lighter shades to soften them out or build them up in ways that I would like to make them more intense. But I mean, I feel like that's just like makeup 101, and I can see where maybe if you were brand new to makeup and like in the tutorial like setting, you wouldn't know that. Otherwise, I really don't think that it's a bad palette. I think across the board, all the shades in here are pretty nice and they are really easy to put together. When I look at this palette, I can see a few different looks already out of the gate. And I mean, this metallic shade that I have on my lid right now, what's it called? Electric. I'm surprised they haven't just repurposed it for other palettes or sold it as a single or what, because it's really gorgeous. It's really pretty. And I don't know, I think it's a really nice palette and I have no problems with it. And so that just makes me think that it's a palette ahead of its time. And I think The real issue here was that people didn't know how to use shades like that. So this is where I'm going to get into some, like, I don't know, maybe some controversial statements of my own. But I just don't think people knew how to do the kind of looks that this palette was kind of going for, the kind of aesthetic, if you will. Like I said in the beginning of the video, the time that this palette came out, and like the time in the year too, I believe this came out in like the summer, and I think that was another complaint too, because everyone was saying that this was like a winter palette. And I just want to let you know, there are people who are goth and grungy year round. Year round. Why wouldn't they also want a fun summer palette? I don't. Anyway, that, like, I don't know, that just kind of like is embarrassing to me, because then it's like, wow, we all just kind of live in our own bubble of the internet, I guess. But at that time period, like I said, everything was warm neutrals. Everything was a red palette. Everything was just warmer tones, warmer purples, warmer blues. Even if we even got that far in the color range, because rainbow palettes were also super rare. I believe this was also like just before the big hit of like the monochromatic palettes, because I think it's 2017. I think it's 2017, or just like very shortly after this palette is released, that like we started to get all of those monochromatic palettes from Jeffree Star Cosmetics and ColourPop and, you know, every brand under the sun. And that's not to say that like the people who made their initial videos are bad at makeup, are lying about their experience with the palette, and that their feelings about the palette not being good aren't sincere. Because I don't know, like, obviously I have the second round of this palette, which is supposed to be the improvement. And the first palette, I've never played with the first palette, nor have I ever owned the first palette, so I couldn't really give you my thoughts on opinions on something that I've never owned. But if someone's zoned in and is giving their thoughts and opinions on that palette, I'm going to take that as truth. So that also being said, I think it's hard to find like a video where they say that they're using the first or second release, or even videos of them comparing the two. Because I think, at least my experience anyway, when I typed in ABH Subculture palette into the YouTube search bar and I, you know, just went by views, a lot of it was just, there was no clear specification. And I mean, I guess you could kind of go off of the date that the like video was released. Because I think that round 2 was released like shortly thereafter. And I don't even think they changed the formula. I think it was just them pressing the shadows a little bit like better. So that kind of just opens my eyes to the makeup world of 2016, because I think obviously trends change, how we apply makeup changes, what we're interested in. Like, look, skin tints or tinted moisturizers in 2016, people would laugh at you and say, what the hell is this, right? Like, and this isn't to dig at anyone who's still doing their makeup like it's 2013, 2014, even 2016. Makeup is for you, the individual, what you like to do, what makes you happy, what is fun for you. I don't know, I really think this is like a product of, I don't want to say like a bandwagon, but I just want to point out Tati's video real quick, because Tati's video, I already see a little bit of discrepancy in that video. So in hers, she's using the palette and she's putting her brush into the palette. And again, I don't know what version of the palette she's using, so I will have to do my research. But she's putting her shadow in the palette and she's going like this. And it's almost as if like she's like slamming her brush all the way in with all the like buildup and fallout that comes out. But I'm supposed to believe that she's rubbing the palette in the same way that I am. And I mean, you see me. If you watch her video, she turns it over and it's almost like the whole shadow like pours out of the thing. And she shows it on her desk. She has a whole mountain of like fallout. I understand with like the metallic shades, like especially like this one electric, it's gonna get around the palette, because that even happens with my Natasha Denona palettes, my Kaleidos, my Melt, whatever. That's just the nature of a metallic shade. But I mean, like, none of these. And then she used this Adorn shade and she said that it was flaking all over her face. She didn't spray her shadows, and that's not to say that like it wouldn't flake if she did. I don't know. I didn't experience that. I was looking at the sticker and it does say 6 months, and I want to know who has 6 months to use like 14 shadows. It would have to be like only using this palette and doing like multiple looks in a day to even get through it, because the Norvina palette says 18 months, and then the Soft Glam 2 doesn't even have a sticker on the back to tell me how long I have to. I'm sure I could look it up online, but I just think that's funny. And I also think it's funny, look at how big the Subculture sticker is about the ingredients and everything in there, and then here's the Norvina. I don't know which one came out first. I really don't. But even in the Norvina palette, like, look, you can see this base shade, it has like a little bit of fallout, like all of my shimmers, like it's not like the cleanest palette, you know? And this is like one of my first palettes that I would ever go into, one of like 2 palettes that I had. And you can tell that it's loved and used, and I really treasure this palette, but I laugh because I don't know, like I don't think that this Subculture palette is a bad palette. I don't, and I think people kind of have the wrong opinion of it, and I'm sad because it makes me think of like what other makeup products like really suffered public scrutiny because it was kind of on trying to test it out and then say that it was like terrible. And so I don't know, I think that's why it's important to have these kind of like review channels and things like that from like all kinds of walks, if you will, to really get a better understanding. Because I don't know, it's like different from like playing a video, like I don't know. You can tell if a video game is good or bad. You can watch a TV show and tell if it's good or bad. I think makeup is like preference. Like an artist, some use oil, some use acrylic, some use color pencil. Some are just digital artists that don't even, like, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's people who only do their makeup with like through apps on like TikTok and Instagram and things like that. So I don't know. I would just like to hear your thoughts and opinions. Do you have the Subculture palette? Are you still using it, or did you get the Subculture palette and you absolutely hated it? I would love to have like an open discussion and see how we're feeling about that. Maybe I'll still be on the hunt for that Marc Jacobs palette. I don't know. But I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.